Hey, you guys, here I am back once again doing another Flickers of Fear at long last. So, so I feel like I'm probably in the majority here when I say that M. Night Shyamalan's movies have been kind of a mixed bag. I don't think that's a controversial statement. Like most people, I really liked his first movie, obviously, The Sixth Sense. And I actually kind of have a soft spot for Unbreakable and Split and Glass, like that trilogy. I'm not as big a fan of Signs as a lot of people tend to be. I recognize that it's a good movie, but I'm just not really big on like alien baddies, with a few exceptions. But I mostly stopped watching his stuff after The Village. So when his movie The Visit came out back in 2015, 10 fucking years ago now, Jesus Christ. I wasn't really interested in seeing it at all, even though a lot of critics at the time I noticed were kind of calling it a return to form. But, it just wasn't really my thing, and it's just like I never got around to watching it back then, and after that I just completely forgot that it existed. But then, as I do from time to time, to get ideas for movies to review for this series, I was kind of recently browsing through one of those, best horror movies on whatever streaming service lists, and there was The Visit, and it was the only movie on that list that I hadn't seen. So even though it was M. Night, the short synopsis of it did sound kind of cool and kind of interesting, so I said, you know what, I'm just going to give it a chance. And I have to say, shockingly, I actually really enjoyed this quite a bit. It took a little while to win me over, mostly because I thought that the two main kid characters were going to annoy the ever-loving shit out of me. But that ended up not happening. And honestly, the story kind of sucked me in. The kids are kind of cringe, but I mean, real life kids are kind of cringe too. So it's like, they kind of got it right on that in that regard. And I also kind of found them sort of endearing, like in a way too. I mean, your mileage might vary on that, because I did see some fans who hated the kids, particularly the boy. He got a lot of hate, which we'll get into maybe why that is like later on. But I didn't. I thought I would hate them. Like at first, I was like, "Oh Jesus Christ, here we go." But I was like, "Nah, they're all right. They were kind of cute." You know what I mean? But I mean, overall in the movie, like the mystery was actually really intriguing. I'm like, what the fuck is going on here? Like some of the visuals were really good, like really unsettling. And even though there was that trademark Shyamalan twist, it was kind of one of his more grounded, believable ones. Not super believable, but it's like it was, based in reality kind of thing. And it was also one that I admit I did not see coming. So overall, The Visit I found really like pretty entertaining. And again, this was a fact that kind of surprised the hell out of me. So The Visit is technically found footage, I guess more properly like a mockumentary, because it's filmed from the perspective of a teenage girl who's making a documentary about the titular visit, which is to their grandparents' house. But because of the way that the tale is presented, it doesn't have too many of the pitfalls that, plague a lot of found footage movies, like that irritating shaky cam where you can't tell what the fuck is going on. It's shot by somebody that kind of knows what they're doing, like in regards to film, even though they're a kid. So it doesn't have that, downfall to it. So the setup is that the teenage girl, Becca, and her younger brother, Tyler, who I think is 13, I think they mentioned, they're going to a farm in this very remote rural area of Pennsylvania, because it's set in Pennsylvania, as I think pretty much all of M. Night's movies are, or most of them at least. They're going to stay with their grandparents for a week. Now, their mom, Loretta, is divorced, and she's actually estranged from her parents for reasons that aren't really elaborated on until later on in the story. So Becca and Tyler have actually never met their grandparents. Out of the blue, though, the grandparents wrote a letter to Loretta asking the kids, if the kids could come visit. And Loretta is kind of reluctant, like I said, because her and her parents don't get along. But the kids actually want to go, mostly just because they're curious, you know what I mean? And also they kind of want to find out what their mother did, like a long time ago, that was so bad that her parents kicked her out of the house and didn't speak to her for 15 years. And it's kind of a win-win, because while the kids are visiting the grandparents, Loretta will actually finally get some time for herself, which she hasn't had in a very long time. She has a new boyfriend who she's really into, and they're going to go on a cruise together. So Becca, the teenage girl who is filming all of this, is actually kind of like a film nerd. And she's sort of kind of ridiculously mature beyond her years. So she decides she's going to document the entire trip. And one of the things I found the funniest about this movie was these very pretentious, like, film school asides that she would make. Like, and she knew all the terminology and stuff, which I thought was very funny. Like, if you're inclined to that style of humor, like, you would probably find it as funny as I did. And I'm going to say, like, as a matter of fact, I wouldn't call this a horror comedy, but it does have a lot more intentional humor in it than M. Night's movies normally do. And in my opinion, I think that was a big point in its favor. Like, it didn't take itself entirely too seriously. Like, it had a lot of humor threaded through it, but it also remembered to be, like, scary at times. Now, along those lines, talking about the humor, I do have to mention, if you've seen this movie, I have to talk about the elephant in the room. That is Tyler, the 13-year-old boy's somewhat frequent rapping. Yes, the kid is white and suburban as all get out, but he is also an aspiring rapper with the hilarious stage name of T Diamond Stylus. I mean, the first time that he said that, and it was like totally serious, I just laughed my ass off. Like, that's great. Now, again, I thought this kid, like, when he first started rapping and stuff, I'm like, oh no, like, you know what I mean? I thought this was gonna get on my last fucking nerve, but the kid actually kind of pulled it off. He was really charming, like, in a weird way. And he also had this, there's kind of like a running gag that he does like a few times in there where he doesn't want to swear as much. So whenever he's gonna swear, like, he uses the name of like a famous, you know, female singer, like Sarah McLachlan, you know what I mean? And it happens a couple of times, and I didn't want for me to think it was funny, but I did kind of think it was funny. Oh, and Tyler is also a germaphobe. So you know that at some point this is going to play into the plot. It does, and I'm going to tell you right now that the scene where it does, and if you've seen the movie, you know exactly the scene I'm talking about, literally made me throw up in my mouth. So I'm just putting that out there. And it's not gore. It was just, yeah, it was pretty fucking gross. So the kids take a train to the grandparents' house, and their grandparents are there to meet them. Now, I think they have first names, but they're generally in the movie just called Nana and Pop Pop. And at first, they seem exactly the way you would expect grandparents to be, right? Like, Pop Pop is kind of this stoic farmer type dude, but he's, you know, friendly enough, and he's interested in the kids' hobbies, and, you know, he seems really nice. Nana is just your classic grandma. She's very sweet, very kind, always has a big plate of cookies, is always like making food and trying to feed you and stuff like that, which my grandma also did. So the kids, like, they sort of, well, just like, these people are lovely. It's like, we can't imagine why the relationship between them and their mother, like, went so sour, and they're really curious now as to what possibly could have happened. Shortly after the kids arrive, though, stuff starts getting a little bit strange. At first, like, everything can be explained away, like, pretty effectively, right? Which I thought was really good, because there's really a steady ratcheting of the weirdness. And at first, it's kind of like, yeah, maybe it's just that, or maybe it's just that. Like, you know, it's that kind of thing. Like, one night, I think the first thing that's sort of awry is that Becca comes out of her room, like, they're both sharing a room, I guess, but comes out of their room, like, at, you know, 9:30, 10 o'clock at night, and she sees Nana, like, walking, like, through the hall, like, or something, like, at the bottom of the staircase, and she's, like, projectile vomiting, like, while she's walking, which is a little weird. So she asks about it the next day, like, hey, is Nana okay? Like, I saw her barfing, like, all over the floor. Pop-Up's like, oh, she was just feeling sick, and she just didn't make it to the bathroom. No big deal. However, Nana also has a tendency to wander around the house at night, sometimes naked, or nearly naked. And she's kind of, like, scratching at the walls and doing shit like that. So when they ask Pop-Pop about this, it's like, oh, she's just sundowning. And, you know, you kids probably, if you don't want to get upset, you know, she does that. You should probably stay in your room after 9:30 and just try to ignore it. It's no big deal again. Tyler also notices that Pop-Pop frequently disappears into this shed on the property. And Tyler starts to wonder what he's up to in there. So he decides to go investigate. Like, he takes his sister's camera and, like, goes to investigate. And Tyler makes the revolting discovery of a massive pile of shit-filled adult diapers. So, because he's a germaphobe, so he is obviously very put out by this. I mean, as most normal people would be. So he asks Nana about it, and she says, oh, well, he's, fecally incontinent and he's really embarrassed about it. So what he'll do is he doesn't want anybody to know that he wears them. So he like wears diapers, he takes them out to the shed. And then like when he gets enough, he eventually burns them because he doesn't want anybody to know. Pop Pop also seems to have like this really pronounced streak of paranoia, as one time when he takes the kids into town, like he just attacks this random man on the street because he thought the man was following him or watching him, even though the man was clearly not doing that. Now the kids are able to like pull him off and calm him down. And again, they tell Nana about it. It's like, oh, he has mild dementia and, paranoia comes with that. And like I said, it all sounds very, very plausible. I mean, the thing about it, like I said, all of this stuff up to now, again, can just be explained by them being old. The two of them are pretty old, and old people do tend to get a bit addled at times. It just comes with age. So the kids don't really think too much about it at first. But then the weirdness starts to escalate. One of the creepiest things that happens, like Becca and Tyler are playing hide and seek under the house, because it's one of those houses that has like the big gap underneath, because that's what their mom used to do. And they think it's so cool. They're like, wow, mom used to play hide and seek under here, and now we're doing it. You know what I mean? Because it's the same house. And while they're playing, Nana unexpectedly and very creepily like joins in and then acts like nothing weird happened. It's very bizarre and it's like very creepy. And she's still wandering around at night, but like her wanderings are starting to become like more overtly threatening. Like she's starting to carry a knife around. And she also starts asking Becca to do weird shit. It's like to help her clean the oven, but she has to like crawl all the way inside, like a Hansel and Gretel type of thing. And on one occasion, the kids noticed that a friend of the grandparents named Stacy came over to the house with a pie, but they never saw her leave. So when the shit finally gets too crazy, the kids FaceTime their mom and beg for her to come get them early. Because I think like she was on a cruise, but like she's back from the cruise now, but it's still like a day or two before she's supposed to come pick them up. But they're like, please, shit's getting crazy around here. Like, please come get us. And it's here where they're talking to their mom, where the big twist of the movie is revealed. And I'm not going to spoil it because this movie isn't really old enough for me to do that. And it's a lot better if you don't know what the twist is. Some people might have guessed it. I did not. But, I thought it was a really good twist. Like I legitimately went, you know what I mean? Like, oh no, you know what I mean? So it's a pretty good one. I do think it's one of his better twists, like big time. It's not completely believable from like a plot perspective, but it is grounded in reality. Like it's not supernatural or anything like that. And it's plausible enough that it totally works. And like once it's revealed, like it just ramps the danger level up to 11. So yeah, as I mentioned, I mean, The Visit was actually a pleasant surprise for me. I think I was expecting to not like it. But I actually ended up liking it like a way more than I thought I would. It's a really genuinely fun movie. It has like some really winning characters, and the mystery at the heart of it is really suspenseful, and it just has like enough creepiness to it to give it a really enjoyable like horror edge. You know what I mean? The two kids in it are great. Like they played really well off of each other. They seemed very much like siblings, and as the story went on, you started to feel like actual anxiety for them, like as the severity of their plight started to become apparent. Now, I will say the coda at the end, like after the big face-off or whatever, and then like there's a little bit of a coda at the end, it was a little bit of an odd tonal shift, because it kind of went a more emotional route rather than kind of the more comedic vibe of the rest of the movie. But I think it was like a good emotional moment too. However, this was immediately undercut by Tyler doing another rap over the end credits, which I was kind of ambivalent about, to be honest. I didn't hate it, but I was just kind of like, I don't know if it needed that. So yeah, all the actors were great. The grandparents in particular just did a fantastic job of going from just kind of eccentric but lovable old coots to something a lot more sinister, like as the movie went on. So while I admit that I haven't bothered to watch most of Shyamalan's more critically eviscerated movies like Lady in the Water or The Last Airbender or whatever, I'm pretty confident in saying The Visit is definitely one of his best movies, and one that I actually wouldn't mind a second viewing of now that I know what the twist is. So that will do it for this Flickers of Fear. Hopefully you guys enjoyed the video. If you did, remember, like, share, subscribe, and comment, and I'll see you guys again on the next one. Bye.